All right. My chair's a little bit high today. Oh, there we go. There we go. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Happy Tuesday. Glad folks are in here. Nothing. Yeah, you saw the title card because I was late with the stream because as I had to get myself reacquainted with my old environs, I didn't have one of my camera things plugged in, didn't realize until late. So I was rebooting and trying to figure out why my camera wasn't showing up. Oh yeah, it wasn't plugged in. Of course, as you can see, got that sorted. So hopefully that's it. Ian says Birthright's domain mechanics are actually something they've been meaning to look into. They have a meeting. Well, enjoy your meeting. We will be looking at it. Yeah, I've been wanting to go look at Birthright for a while. I recently reacquired a copy of the Birthright box. I posted some pictures to my forums, also to Instagram, if you want to go check it out. Just some things, some of the neat little cards and things that came with Birthright. I don't think I have any particular notes, so I'm going to let me get my screen shared here so that we can see what we can see. And also all the D&D books I think are on sale on drive-thru. There is a the Birthright books are on drive-thru. And this is what I'm using for the electronic version. So we've got that here. In particular on this stream, I think what I'm going to do, because there are some different aspects of Birthright that I think are interesting. The setting seems kind of cool, but I don't know if I'm going to go into the setting. This particular video, I'm not going into the settings. So if you're like, ooh, this is going to be go through all the setting stuff, this is not that stream. I will come back to it if there's, especially if there's demand for it. So if you want a read through and discussion of the setting, we can do that another time. And specifically this video, we're going to look at the domain rules. There are also some mass combat rules and other things that might be interesting. So there's a lot here. As I mentioned, the book's on sale. I believe it's normally $10 and it's $6 right now. There's a link to it in the show notes. If you see the stuff and you think, oh my gosh, I need in. Well, now's a good time. That was a good time to get in and see it. And it would be interesting if they would revisit Birthright. For those who don't know, Birthright, a setting for 2nd edition. What's notable about Birthright, there are lots of settings, but what's notable about Birthright is that it really is domain focused. A large part of the campaign is about domain play, or about this, or I should say game playing in this setting. It's all about domains. That's kind of what sets it apart. And it front loads that you can start at level 1 with domains. It's not, hey, when you reach 8th level, you're going into sort of the twilight of your career, you can switch over and start doing domains. This is no, domains are kind of front and center. And that's pretty much, I think, what would set Birthright apart from another setting. It's not Dark Sun. It doesn't have anything, I don't think, really any weird takes on kind of fantasy settings. That's not what it's about. It's more or less, I don't know, in sort of, I think what you would think of in kind of medieval fantasy. But the big selling point is, hey, domains, something you could do from the start. And because it has that from the start, you can see why it would also need to have sort of mass combat and kind of skirmish combat rules, because you're going to, when you're dealing with domains, you're starting to deal with states and principalities, things like that, going into conflict, which is going to be a lot more troops than your general 5 or 6 party members and however many hirelings. But for today, we're going to go through we're going to go through the domain rules. I'm not sure if the combat rules will come up in here. If they do and we have time, we'll keep going through it, but maybe I'll have to save that. I'm thinking I'm going to save that for another video, but we'll see how far we get with the stream. So let's just hit it right from the top. If you're playing along at home, this is page 32. In the Birthright campaign setting, each player can choose to play a regent, a character who rules his own domain. He can be a lord of a kingdom or barony, the patriarch of a temple, the leader of a thieves guild, or master of the magical arts. Whatever his position, he is powerful and influential. His actions affect the shape of the world and the direction of the campaign. And that is really a good sort of little elevator pitch of the setting, right? You don't have to work your way up. You are starting out as this person of power, potentially. Regency is the mystical power associated with blooded rulers and leaders. It is a blend of nobility, honor, and kismet that a true king wears like an invisible crown. If a character rules well and exemplifies the qualities of his alignment, his regency is strong. His unseen aura of power helps him to do things that lesser mortals couldn't even dream about. If a king rules poorly, his regency weakens. In game terms, a character's regency is measured by a score, regency points, or RP. During the game, the regent can use these points to expand his domain, increase the power of his bloodline, or affect events occurring within his domain. So in this case, we talk about RP, we're not talking about roleplay. We're talking about regency points. Hey, Brian Smith, we're talking about domains in Birthright right now at Regency. I think the key thing to note about this particular concept, it's a kind of an interesting take in thinking about, well, we're dealing with a fantasy medieval game. So you think about things in sort of fantasy medieval literature, things like Lord of the Rings. What makes Aragorn a king, right? It's his bloodline. It's not just his bloodline, but the bloodline plays a part. And Aragorn in the movie does the thing, and really more than the books, kind of is the weakness of his bloodline. Isildur failed. Can Aragorn succeed? But the fact that Aragorn has this sort of kingliness about him as a person, you can see how that affects other people, other creatures in the books. And we think about a lot of that in the fiction, right? King Arthur has something about him. Sure, he's the son of Uther, but then he's got his own stuff, and that makes him a great king, and other kings or other leaders might be weak. And what they're doing is separating that from your level. You could be a high level, but with very low regency. You can be low level, very high regency. So it allows them to play with this idea of, sure, you're just a level 1 fighter, but you have these other things that make you special in a different way. In a different way. And in order to do that, we need to decouple them a bit. It's not just you're a great king because you're level 9. It's you're a great king because these other things. And what are these other things? Whatever qualities mixed up together. They went through and mentioned what they're talking about fictionally, and mechanically it's these regency points. Ryan Smith says, someday I'll get my group to try out some domain level play. They struggle to handle their singular PCs, let alone a whole domain though. You never know, Brian Smith. Sometimes I think some people gravitate and they're actually better at managing the one than the other. You might get some people who are on the ball with their personal PC. When it comes up to a domain, they don't take to it, or they doesn't work well for them, and then others might be the reverse. I think the other thing is you can, depending on how you play, get a lot of especially in kind of a sandboxy campaign, you can get a lot of mileage over things that come up because of situations and things that people are doing on domain levels. You can really pull in world events. It's affecting all these different domains, and some of the stuff they have to do on a domain level, then other stuff they have to go in adventure, and you can really kind of link that up. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to work. This is definitely not a mechanic. It's not a concept that's going to work for every table. And I think you could probably play in the setting without doing the domains, right? They don't say you have to. It's just say, hey, you can choose to be a region. But I think when it comes down to pitching why you would play Birthright, I think this is the promise. This is the premise that you're promising. Hey, you're going to get to do this stuff. Characters and domains. Not every character is a king. Each player decides whether his PC is a ruler or is free of the crown's burden. This means that 3 types of characters exist in a Birthright campaign: scions, regents, and unblooded adventurers or commoners. Well, there you go. So they're laying it out for us right now. Scions are blooded characters descended from Cerealia. That's the kind of, in terms of the map, this is the world that we're playing in. Cerelia's heroic bloodlines. A blooded character may be a regent, a relative of a regent, or a member of a bloodline that doesn't rule a domain. Scions have a bloodline derivation and strength, but if they don't rule a domain, they don't accumulate regency points. PCs may begin as scions and become regents later. Regents are blooded characters who hold domains of any kind. Domains can be kingdoms, guild networks, temple sects, or collections of magical power. Character may carry a title such as Duke or King, Duke, Count, Prince, Patriarch, or Guildmaster. Regents accumulate regency points by controlling domains, and their bloodline strength may change with the success of their reign. Unblooded characters or commoners make up 99% of Cerelia's population. For every blooded king, there is a whole court full of advisors, servants, guards, and attendants. Some of these personages can be skilled adventurers. Unblooded characters don't have a bloodline strength or derivation and cannot be regents. So there you go. Elfbait, hey Elfbait, says that they were gifted the box set and a few supplements from the setting, and they love it. Cool. Yeah, so right off the bat, I think there's something that's interesting that's a little bit, they don't say it right out, but you kind of, but it's implied, right? So as a player, you can choose to be a scion or a regent, which is basically a special sort of scion, or a scion is a more broad sense, right? Scions are folks who are blooded, but they're not regents. Regents are scions who are currently regents, and then unblooded characters, commoners. but notice that 99% of the people are commoners. So in a sense, if your PCs are basically that 1%, unless they choose specifically to be part of the 99%. So it's really, it's stating in a sense how special in reality being a PC is, right? 99% of the people are just common folk. Creating a regent character. All right, so I don't know. So I've read these things verbatim because I think it's important. I don't know if I'm going to read everything verbatim. I'm probably going to want to not necessarily get in the weeds and all the, let's create a character since we're not creating one right now. Maybe down the line we'll go through something where we'll create one. But for right now, I'm more into the concepts and I guess high level stuff. Ryan Smith says, this is always the one that pops up with favorable reviews relating to domain stuff. They like what they're hearing already. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think I've heard anyone just say that, Birthright stinks or anything, but I think it's I don't think it gets talked enough as much as, say, Spelljammer, which I'll do a video on because I reacquired a Spelljammer box also recently, and say Dark Sun or Planescape. It's kind of forgotten. Maybe just a couple of those are just super strong. I feel like it's a lot more solid in the way everything works together than Spelljammer. But I'm not sure. Maybe it's just the fact that ultimately lots of people don't want to play domains. And so it was kind of digging up into an area of the game that was sort of going cold at that moment, right? Like, oh, we're this kind of play is falling out of fashion. And then this is kind of leaning into that so that it just kind of fell to the wayside with a lot of other stuff. We shall see. But I always like domains. All right, let's get into what the domain is. Domains take many forms. Typically, the type of domain a character rules is associated with the character's class. Warriors are usually titled nobles who rule kingdoms. Priests tend to control clerical hierarchies and temples and occasionally hold lands under theocratic rule. Thieves control guilds, the guilds and underworlds of their domains, while wizards' domains include all places where they have magical influence. A ranger or druid might not govern at all, but rely on networks of allies and contacts. Domains are rarely made up of one kind of holding and usually include several different elements. A character's domain comprises any or all of the following: the provinces he rules, holdings in his own provinces, holdings in provinces ruled by other PCs or NPCs, and then assets such as roads, castles, and armies. And here they're going to define the term realm. The term realm refers to any domain that includes one or more provinces. A province ruler is a recognized lord or political entity capable of making laws, executing justice, and performing other duties expected of a head of state. A domain composed entirely of guild, temple, or source holdings is not a realm. Only domains with provinces can be called realms. So, you can have a domain that is a network of whatever, but it's not a realm unless you actually have some land. Realm is for those who control the real estate. He who controls the real estate controls the universe. Elfbait says that domain play has a lesser audience, much like survival-based campaigns, is an acquired or specialist taste. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. It definitely is at this point a kind of a specialist. Oh, I guess Matt Colville with his Kingdoms and a couple of his books have shown that there is an audience for it, though I don't know. It would be interesting to see of those kind of modern takes, especially the ones that have are very well known and popular, what things people use. Do a lot of people playing his type of game have domains? I know when he's talked about his campaigns and how they work, they do include a fair amount of domain play, or how that works. How many people are using those actually use the domain elements? Selecting a domain. Players should select a domain for their region characters. The Ruins of Empire booklet provides a directory of the domains available in Anuir. The player character as the new regent gains all assets of the select domain, as well as all liabilities, such as NPC holdings within its borders. Ignore information about the ruler. The player character takes over as the regent. Elfbay says that both my brother and I have Strongholds and Kingdoms and barely used it. Yeah, I have Strongholds and Kingdoms somewhere, and I actually haven't really read it yet. But I've been meaning to. So I was going to mention, so I have the box here. I can pull it up without going off. We get the box is fairly nice, and I didn't do like an unboxing video. Maybe I'll go back and do that quickly at some point. But one of the things you get are these cards. I'm going to find one that have some of the domains information, at least a couple of them. So like this one for Rousseau, which actually somebody, I forget their name, sorry, I could look up later, on Twitter had been talking about. But then you see there's this record sheet, which gives you all the stuff about it. So you kind of see these domains. And in the, in the one book, the other book they mentioned, there's kind of a directory. And basically here, hey, to get your choice, you take over. You just kind of become that regent, and you inherit all the good things and bad things about the campaign. The mass combat rules. Yeah, Elfbait, I was going to say, I think in that Kingdoms and... What's it called again? Strongholds and Kingdoms. I think the combat rules, yeah, I think get the most play. That was my idea anyway. Okay, so we'll get into some of the more... So you could pick a domain. And of course, if we were playing something homebrew, we'll create our own domains. And I think interestingly, in this setting, the domains are basically all already set. The provinces are pretty much all laid out. If you go to my forums, I took a picture of the player map that's got all the domains. And there's another one, which I think is the DM facing map that has a little bit more info. But in any case, you can see how the domains the provinces are already sort of hashed out. If we were playing a kind of homebrew campaign, then we would want to figure out what makes sense. In this case, I think there's kind of history here. There's a lot of history here that you've sort of, like you might if you were playing in a European game, once you get up, I don't know even what year you would get to, a lot of the provinces are set. Their borders don't change so much. Some provinces or some domains might absorb multiple provinces, but the idea of what the province is more or less fixed. We understand that Alsace-Lorraine is here, and someone may control it, someone else may control it, but they're not really cutting it up into different parts anymore. It kind of is set. In a completely homebrew campaign, you'd want to work out, or you could just do with the players if they're creating provinces of whole cloth from a true sort of wilderness area, or if you have a more or less set spot or set area that's totally, I guess, been taken over by various settling forces. You may before the game write up where these province borders are, and then set them apart. I think it was notable. There are no hexes on these maps. If you go look at the player maps and everything just has those province borders. Nowhere in there will you find a single hex. Oh, Bob Mosdell mentions, Strongholds and Followers and Kingdom and Warfare. Those are the two Matt Colville books. And then Worlds Without Number also has some Birthright influence, and Adventurer, Conqueror, King. Okay, cool. It says, those 2E box sets love their page-sized game aids. I agree. Everyone loves the tiny little A5 or A4, whatever it is. But yeah, but they are nice. They're nice, and it's good stock. It's got some kind of coating, so it's pretty. I feel it's pretty long lasting. A province is a political division like a county or township. Generally, the divisions are the result of terrain, economics, and loyalties. Most provinces measure about 1,000 to 1,500 square miles, about 30 to 40 miles square. Although the exact dimensions of a province aren't important. The vital characteristic of a province is its level. This is an overall measure of its prosperity and importance. Province levels are abbreviated for gameplay by placing the level number in parentheses behind the holding. Thus, Prince Wilhelm rules a level 2 province. Prince Wilhelm rules a province, parenthetically, 2. And what do these levels mean? I was just laughing because I saw this on one of the cards, and here it is too. The background is beautiful, this kind of, I don't know, sort of pastel watercolor vibe, but they have no care not at all that the black text is running into this background pretty heavily there. Not great, I imagine, for some folks. Of course, when I was younger, I would have cared not for such things. Oh, let me turn my light on here also. Might help. There we go. Level 0 provinces are wild, unsettled, or untenable, home to nothing more than wildly scattered homesteads or tiny villages. The overall population is usually less than 1,000 people. Levels 1 to 3 provinces are thinly settled rural regions with small villages and 1 or 2 towns of 1,000 people or less. The population may range from 2,000 to 10,000 people. Then levels 4 to 6 provinces are settled farmlands with small industries. Major towns may have populations of up to 5,000 people, and the overall population ranges from 10,000 to 40,000. Ice drain be damned, Brian Smith says. Exactly. And then level 7 or greater provinces are densely settled with well-developed industries in major cities. And you might get up to 100,000 people. So you could look at it, and if you were going to convert this to hexes, you could, that's I don't know, 1,000 to 1,500 square miles that's a lot. I mean, I don't know the difference between my mathematics are failing me. I don't know the difference between miles square and square miles. I'm not sure. I mean, if we're doing 6 mile hexes, that's a lot of square miles in terms of that. 1,000 square miles for that's at least, I don't know, 36 mile hexes. But then you have 30 to 40 miles square. Would that mean that it's closer to 2 hex? I don't know. I'm not sure. If somebody knows, let me know in the chat or let me in the comments the difference between a square mile and miles square. Because goodness knows, I don't know. So I'm not sure how big those are supposed to be. But I would say maybe a handful of hexes and just their numbers be damned. Might be a good spot to think about what a single province would be. Or maybe more depending on the size of your hexes. Maybe it would be something like 10 6-mile hexes or 3 36-mile hexes. I don't know. 30 to 40 miles aside. Okay, so that would be something like 6 hexes. 6 by 6. Something like that. Okay, i.e. 30 miles square is 900 square miles. 40 miles square is 16. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Bob Mazel, no nothing. Both coming to the same thing. I got you. So in terms of if we were doing our kind of 6 mile hexes, we'd be talking like 10 or 5 6 mile hexes. Brian Smith just read the Google explanation, and they're no more certain of the difference. All right. In any case, we could say maybe your average province is maybe would be a square of 6 mile hexes. You were to put them all together in some kind of square, some kind of configuration like that. So, or something like that, right? So 5 6 mile hexes, I don't know, something like that. If we were trying to put it in hex mappy terms. Provinces are also described in terms of terrain. Terrain is important during adventuring and when moving troops in wartime. If you select a pre-generated domain, the terrain and level of each province in the domain is already determined. If you use the domain design rules, you can create any kind of domain you like. That'll be cool. Hopefully we'll get there. Holdings. Provinces are also described by the establishments within them. 4 types of holdings exist: guilds, law sources, parenthetically magical holdings, and temples. And then a province can only support a number of holdings. Each province is considered to have a number of slots equal to its level available for most types of holdings. Thus, a province of level 4 can accommodate up to 4, as they say, slots. I guess it's kind of like an inventory, so maybe slots is an appropriate word. But basically, 4 law holdings, 4 temple holdings, 4 guilds. Magic is done differently. Normally, the ruler of a province controls some of the holdings in his province. Other regions may also claim guilds, temples, law, or sources in the domain. So that's another kind of interesting thing that you could tap in here if you wanted to introduce some elements, but not introduce them all at once. So it's clear here that you could be a scion or some other, or a regent. I guess it doesn't have to be. You might not have your own domain, but maybe you have a piece. You know, when they say like, oh, the adventuring party, they bought the tavern in this place. Maybe that counts as one of these slots. And then that kind of, you can start to fold in some domain politics, because now they're essentially they have a landlord, essentially, right? The lord who's going there, who's doing that. They have to pay rents. But then you have this kind of, and granted, you can do that stuff without any sort of system, but you can kind of start working in these things into the system if you wanted to. If your province is level 1 to 3, only one region can control a particular type of holding. If it's 4 to 6, you can have 2 regions can control stuff. 7 to 9 could be 3. And I don't know if it goes up to more than 9. All right, I'm going to skip past some of the stuff. I do want to see law holdings are any entities ranging from moronic vigilantes to the King's Royal Guard that affect a ruler's ability to control a province and the loyalty of his government servants, including bureaucrats and constables. When a law holding belongs to a region who is hostile to the province's ruler, it presents banditry and lawlessness. Why wise rulers try to control at least some law holdings in the provinces they rule, since this improves the ability to control rebellious areas. That's pretty cool. So basically your law and order, or the inverse thereof. And then sources represent the magic power of a province. Unlike other holdings, a source's level is much lower in highly developed areas, since the clearing and settling of the land weakens natural magical forces. So that's a really cool concept. It gives you a nice little balancing act. If you are a magic user, or if, say, you want to have magic as a large part of your domain or your province, then you don't necessarily want to develop it, because the more you develop it, you'll weaken that. And the more wild you keep it, the stronger it will be, of course. Then in other ways, the province is underdeveloped. So it's kind of cool. And I like that. It kind of plays into the sort of fiction of, right, this, that there's some connection with the universe, with magic. And so the more you basically separate the land from that connection, that the weaker magic gets within it. And then you got your temple holdings, monasteries, shrines, temples, cathedrals, so on and so forth. Assets. Anything a region controls that is not listed above is known as an asset. The region controls the expenditure of money, the building of castles, and the movements of armies. Assets don't contribute to a character's regency, but they can be a major factor in the success of the region's domain. 8 types of assets exist: armies, courts, fortifications, ley lines, lieutenants, roads, trade routes, and treasuries. Bob Monson says it sets up a good central tension. Yeah, I do. And then we got ley lines, very cool. Lieutenants. I think most of these are pretty self-explanatory, right? Courts are your centers of power. This is where you're conducting the business of the realm. Fortifications, fairly obvious. Ley lines are conduits of magical power, energy. Lieutenants are loyal and competent followers. Roads are roads. And then trade routes. It's obviously not just the road, but I think it's actually that, say, the network of trade that allows income to come in between domains. And then treasury is where you're keeping your monies. You could think of it once and go, well, why would I have more than one treasury? But you got to be able to pay out people in different parts of a realm quickly. People aren't doing a whole lot on layaway. You're going to have soldiers out or anything, and they're going to come back and expect to be paid from a spot. So you're going to want to have monies nearby so that people can get paid quickly, because if they're not, who knows what kind of devilry they may engage in. Brian Smith says, it would be kind of fun in a nerdy way to translate existing settings into domain form, like Chult, the Tomb of Annihilation, as a domain. Play a high level and drill down and still have lots of material. That would be kind of cool. I own Tomb of Annihilation, but I haven't really read through it a bunch on Chult, so might be kind of fun. But I think I think this is something else you can start to bring into your campaign if you feel like these rules and mechanics would be useful, or if you think your party might engage with them. You can take your existing. You probably might need to mess with them a little bit, because I think what we'll find, or at least in terms of these kind of rules, is that a lot of our realms tend to be overstuffed. Oh, there's 800 this and 500 this, right? And you think, this one's going, yeah, you got 4. You don't have like all these guilds and all these things and all these temples and everything. Maybe the biggest city has a few, but essentially most of your province is like, yeah, you've got 4 slots. So how are you gonna tell all the stuff that you have and pare it down? But I kind of like those pared down things, because once you have to pare things down like that, it forces you to kind of think about the important things and also spread things around. If you want to have temples, all the major gods, let's say, in your Olympian pantheon, and you realize that even in a place like Rome, I'm only going to have, say, 4 or 6. And then you start thinking about, well, what are the major gods in Rome? Okay. And now I got to think about where these other gods located. And when players may want to go and consult with these other gods, oracles, all these other things, then they have to move around. And it gives you this idea of how to get your players out into your world and just out there. We're like, oh, yeah, well, that temple, there's not enough of a following here. Rome is all about, Jupiter and Minerva or whatever. So you got to go and go out here. And, oh, you want to go? So now you got to go out to Campania somewhere where the shrine to Apollo is and check them out there, whatever it might be. But it gives you some things. But yeah, I imagine that you could end up in a spot where you find that a lot of your domains got more going on than the rules allow. So here's a sample domain. The map on this page illustrates a sample domain, the theocracy of Mediore, or Medore, maybe. I don't know why I'm making it Italian, but there it is. In the southern coastlands of Anuire, or Anuir. The region of this domain is Suris Enlian, a priestess who controls provinces, temple holdings, and law holdings as her domain. The first thing to notice is that she rules a theocracy of 3 provinces. So we have Alamir, which is a province 4, Brame, province 3, and Carewil, province 2. This means that Medoere is a realm as well as a domain, and Suris is recognized as the head of state. Suris also controls temple holdings in all 3 provinces. A temple in Alamir, a temple, a level 4 temple. Anyway, she controls 3 temples, one in Alamir, one in Brame, one in Carewil. I'm not sure if those are levels of the temples. Maybe it is. So 4, 3, and 2. And a law in Brame. So she's got 2. Does that mean she's got 2 things in Brame? 3 in... I'm not sure what those... I'm trying to think what the number after the slash means. I do not know. Terrence with the Kingdom of Midori Sour. Yeah, there you go. Bob Moz says the Birthright.net is still up and slow. Their account, oh, you still got an account there? Nice. And there's lots of material. Okay, well, I'll thanks, Bob. I'll throw that in the show notes afterwards. That interested in more, the Birthright.net is still alive. All right, Midori is the home to the holdings of. Oh wait, whoops, I skipped ahead. Outside her provinces, in the province of Kerkas, across the river in Rosone, she also controls a temple. So there's something over there. Midori is home to the holdings of several other regions in addition to Suris. The wizard Hermedi controls sources in Brame and Carewil, while the mage Roger is the master of wizardly magic in Alamir. Both wizards have forged ley lines in Midori. Since they're not part of Suris's domain, they're not shown here. Sneaky. In Carewil, Gilder Kalian controls law and guild holdings, thus challenging Suris's control of her northern frontier. Also sneaky. Alamir is a province, meaning it can support a second priest regent, a temple. Oh wait, Alamir is a province, meaning a province of level 4, meaning it can support a second priest regent, a temple loyal to another domain exists here. Suris has several assets to help her rule her domain. Alamir itself is guarded by a castle 4 overlooking her capital. I guess that's Brame, or is that Ilian? No, that's Brame. Ilian's a different. Right there. Okay. Let's see. A small army of 6 infantry companies is scattered among her 3 provinces, but more could be raised quickly if needed. The town of Alamir itself is a small port, supporting a trade route through the busy waters of the Straits of Arail, and the second trade route runs to Ilian by way of a coastal road. So there's some kind of road, I guess, following the coast would run that way. Overall, Suris is assisted by a capable lieutenant, a warrior who commands her armies. Her treasury stands at 12 gold bars. Brame and Carewil have an average loyalty toward her rule. Alamir has a high loyalty. Overall, Midori is a small but well-balanced domain with a good mix of provinces, holdings, and assets to protect them. This would be a fine starting position for a priest or paladin regent. Other characters wouldn't gain regency points for controlling Midori's temples, and therefore wouldn't be as well suited to this domain. Several options currently exist for expansion or actions. That second temple on Alamir, for example, might be considered a slap in the face. With skill and patience, Suris can build Midori into a major power. There you go. Brian Smith asks, can you basically play the map like Risk in between the group PC setting? Is that what people did when domain play was on Vogue? But Mosley says, short answer, yes. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. You have, and I post this, Brian Smith, if you go to the forums and if you go to that feed or the topic where I threw in some photos, you'll notice there is, one of the photos is of a domain turn summary card, which I will just show here, which kind of gives you the breakdown, kind of what you can do on your turn order. So basically you would roll for random events, you have a domain initiative, you collect your regency points, you do your taxation collection and trade, pay maintenance, declare your free actions, then you go through your rounds of non-free actions, which are kind of your domain actions, war moves, battles that you fight, and occupy or retreat. You adjust kind of your loyalty, treasury, and regency, and then kind of that's it. And actually, the other side has a nice handy table, which I didn't put a picture of all the different actions, which I imagine we'll be getting to. Though we're already past half the time, so I might have to do this in 2 parts. We'll see. All right, Regency and domains. You gain Regency, or the first part is gaining Regency. Every domain turn, a region increases Regency point score by a number equal to his Bloodline strength score or the sum of his domain power, whichever is smaller. Character's domain power is the amount of Regency all of his provinces and holdings generate. It is the sum of all the levels of holdings and provinces controlled by the region. So there you go. But you get the one that's smaller. So you kind of want to keep them both at least at about the same level, because if one is smaller, then you're losing out on potential points. Spending and losing Regency. Regency points can be spent or lost in a number of ways. First, if a character's domain or bloodline is weakened, for any reason, he collects less Regency in the domain turn. Second, the character may spend Regency points on various actions in the domain turn. And then third, Regency may dissipate at the end of a domain turn if a ruler violates the tenet of his alignment. Regents must be careful to act in accordance with their beliefs. And I do like the alignment tie-in. I know some folks are going to go, oh, alignment, I hate it. You can replace it with some whatever code of honor or whatever. But I do like the fact that, hey, there's a certain, you stand for something, whatever it might be, even if it's just selfishness and raw power grabbiness. But you gotta, that's part of you, and you have to be true to that if you want to keep your points. And here is Blood Orange Tangerine Spindrift for the working man. Okay, what else we got here? Regency points and bloodline strength. A regent may choose to increase his bloodline strength by spending Regency points. This can be done at any time. The regent must spend a number of Regency points equal to the score he's trying to reach. A regent with a bloodline strength of 25 may raise it to 26 by spending 26 Regency points. The character can raise his bloodline strength by no more than 1 point per domain turn in this fashion. Let's see, I'm just reading up on the chat. Let's see, Brian Smith and Bob Mostel talking about some stuff. Bob Monsell says, in fact, often you'd have half a dozen players, all regions of realms, and they pick an action like move army or spy on neighbor or build road. And then Brian Smith likes that, says, I've always been enamored of the idea of having people who can't commit to a regular D&D session by sending in domain level moves for the factions. Yeah, you could really run this a lot, like you mentioned Risk, but I think the one that might be even a better is diplomacy. And you could have it write down your moves all the time you want to chat about it, and then we're going to run the moves, and we're going to roll the initiative, and then put out these orders. In fact, that's kind of a neat way to do it, because having to write them down, you get to play with the fact that you don't know exactly when things are going to happen, and you're just going to say, hey, I got this many moves, I'm going to try to do them, and hopefully hopefully when I'm doing it, my initiative lines up. Might be a neat way to do it, and you could definitely run a lot of that online, right? Have a forum, have on Discord, send them by email, send them by regular mail, even. Actually, regular mail might be kind of fun. When does your letter come in the mail? That is when it will get. That's the order. The order is in when your GM receives the note, and if they come on the same day, then you can roll it off. Investiture. When a regent takes the rulership of a province or holding away from another regent, he must undergo a ceremony of investiture to add the provinces or holdings to his domain. This ceremony magically shifts the power of the land or holding to the new ruler, so that the ruler is tied to it and can affect and benefit from it. Until this ceremony is performed, the province or holding is not counted toward the regent's domain power, and he gains no regency points. Which I think is also a very cool concept, because you just think of all the adventures you could have. Is somebody stole your domain, but they haven't done the ceremony yet, and it's got to be kind of big and bold and everything, right? You can't just sneak it and do it. You have to take it and hold some kind of ceremony. And then it could be, hey, can the players stop? Can the PCs stop the Baron before they get crowned by the local bishop, and therefore have now been called the Duke of Brame, whatnot. Investiture is also used to create vassalage arrangements and to voluntarily transfer the rule of provinces and holdings to another regent. Bob also says a bit of software existed at one time to help moderate that kind of play. Probably not supported anymore, but it might still be archiveware. Yeah, Bob, but I think you got stuff like Slack, Discord, email, message boards. I don't think we need, I don't think you need some kind of specialized bit. There's so many things now that you could do it. Even just email, just sending an email or a DM in your, you could do it in Twitter. I mean, Facebook, anywhere. All right. Vassalage domains need not be ruled absolutely. A weak region often will pledge loyalty and support to a stronger region in exchange for peace. This arrangement is known as vassalage. By taking the oaths of vassalage, a weaker regent agrees to donate some of his regency points to the stronger regent. The stronger regent receives more power, and the weaker one preserves his domain and his life. Both characters must participate in a ceremony of investiture in order for the agreement to take hold. All right. Now let's get to the domain turn. Domains aren't static. From year to year, the fortunes of a kingdom or a temple wax and wane with the tide of history. So I already went through the summary in terms of when you play a domain turn. The AD&D game is based on adventures, not public administration. Domain turns serve as a backdrop for adventures in Cerealia and as a measuring standard of a character's success as a ruler. Domain turns are tools for creating exciting adventures and challenges for the PCs. Domain turns are conducted as the players and DM see fit. Generally, 2 or 3 short adventures or 1 longer quest should take place between domain turns, but if the player characters are content to skip adventuring for a while, there's no reason that 2 or 3 domain turns can't be played back to back. In any case, the DM and the players decide when and how to conduct the play of the campaign. And you could probably figure out some sort of calendar type schedule, maybe seasonally, depending on what you see of these turns, maybe a couple of times per season. You could set it up, right? We got 4 seasons in the year. Maybe you say, okay, three turns per season. So you end up with basically your 12. I mean, it ends up being monthly, right? So each month you get a domain turn, which kind of makes sense. But you might say, no, I want 2. You might say, I want more. You'd be more loosey-goosey. I kind of like the idea of using the calendar because I think, again, I'm always about how can we talk about leveraging time, how important it is in dungeons, how important it is in travel. Well, I think that importance should continue on to this level of domain play. It should still be important. So I think some kind of schedule in which you're doing things, and you could, of course, write up, I need to emerge from the dungeon because I need to send a note with my pigeon back to the home castle to tell them to do X, Y, and Z kind of thing you could do. Or if you're doing something kind of West Marches-y, since you're always ending up back in civilization, you could, in essence, end up back at your domain at kind of the start of things, or some point where it's easy to get messages to your domain, and then you can take care of your domain business. Hey, War Bunny, it is indeed Birthright. Hop, hop, hop. Truly love Birthright. Awesome. The center of action. If your player characters are scattered widely across Cerealia, consider running the domain turn for only a few domains at a time. In other words, 6 player character regents are in your campaign. You might want to play a domain turn for 2 or 3 of them at a time instead of all 6 at once. And this is something, again, right, with the kind of modern tools we have, you could probably handle all of this with everybody. You just don't need to do it. You can do most of it in between your sessions, and then come to the sessions for when things need to between players. I really like that, the concept of diplomacy. You write up all your actions, you can have all the discussions, write up your actions, and then maybe in the actual session you can go through those actions and resolve them, or even resolve them, and then the players can come together for the aftermath, or not. Purple Druid says this setting is prime for one-to-one timekeeping and downtime play. Absolutely. Agree completely. And Purple Druid, by the way, check out his YouTube channel. He's got some great stuff on the combat side of Birthright. I was watching the skirmish demo a little bit earlier, which was very cool. All right, so NPC Regions, I'm not going to get into that because we don't really care. We can do it. We don't have to cover it. Domain sequence of play. I went through this, so you're going to roll random events, determine domain initiative, collect your regency points, do your taxes, collections, and trade, pay your maintenance, have free actions you can declare, and then you start doing actions and rounds, starting with your domain actions, your war moves, your fight, battles, occupy or retreat, and these are the ones that you're paying for, and then you just repeat them for, I guess, second or third. I don't know if you can manage to get more. But then you can. Then you go through and you adjust your loyalty and regency. Whatever things happen might adjust your loyalty. And of course, if you're spending points to do stuff, that would adjust your regency. First up, random events. Every active domain is subject to a random event. At the beginning of each domain turn, random events can help develop secondary plot lines, place miscellaneous obstacles in a region's path, or introduce adventure hooks. The seeds of a future adventure can be sown in a cleverly staged, here they put in quotes, random event. So I suppose implying that the events might not be as random as they might seem. But the kind of random events, it's a 2d10 roll, which is interesting. I don't think I've seen a lot of 2d10 rolls, especially not in just kind of first-party TSR stuff that I recall. Then someone's going to at me with, oh, all the times that 2d10 has come up, but fine. Anyhow, you get from blood challenges, assassinations, festivals, feuds, some kind of natural event, something diplomatic, something to do with corruption or crime, nothing at all. Monsters or brigandage, some kind of trade, matter, intrigue, unrest or rebellion, a matter of justice, a great captain or heresy, or a magical event. So I think that covers a lot of ground. I don't think we need to go over them all, but these are the kind of things that could happen. The initiative, you collect your points. Let's see. Depending on your features that you control, if you're different classes, you'll get Regency from them. So thieves, rangers, and bards will collect from guilds. Warriors, priests, and thieves will collect from law. Wizards from source. Remember those magical sources. Priests and paladins from temples, and then everything will collect from just your general province stuff. In trade routes, thieves get a little extra. And here we have an example. Riella Terhone of Illini is a first level fighter with a bloodline score of 26. Her domain consists of 7 provinces whose ratings total 24 points. She has 15 levels of law holdings scattered throughout those provinces. She also has 4 levels of law holdings in the neighboring lands of Osuride. Together, her domain power is 24 plus 15 plus 4, or 43 points. Since her bloodline score is 26, she gains 26 Regency points this turn. Got that? And those latter points are the 4, right? The 4 law, and then the 4 law in someone else's lands, and then the 15 law on her lands, then plus the 24 points from the provinces. So if just for example, if she had everything was the same, but she was not a fighter, she was a wizard, she would only end up with, assuming that she only had those holdings, she would just get the 24. It would just be at 24 points. And so she would gain 24 points instead of 26, since now her province points are below her bloodline score. Ruling a domain is expensive. Fortunately, regions can collect money from their subjects. I'm not going to go through I'm not going through all the nitty gritty here, but you get a rating, and then you can decide how severe you want to tax. If you're light taxes, you're going to roll different kind of dice with some modifiers, and then if you get negative results, it's just you didn't collect any taxes. And then let's see, trade routes generate money for the regions who create them, but thieves do get a piece. And then we have some other things about guild and temple collections. Claims by law holdings. All law holdings may attempt to claim money generated by province taxation or collection from a holding in the same province. A region can attempt to claim money earned by taxing his own provinces, but he'll only break even. When a law holding chooses to do so, the DM rolls on this table 18A. Where's 18A? That's 17. That's 18. 18A, I see. And then you can roll. All right. So I don't want to get caught up too much in the nitty gritty of taxes. Just, you get it. You have to pay some kind of maintenance as well. Payroll, maintenance costs. And here we have a table. Number of provinces and holdings that are controlled, and then the maintenance costs. The value of court. Regions don't live like paupers. Each active regent must spend money to hold court and support his staff each domain turn. The regent decides how much he wants to spend, but generally the more he spends, the more opulent and impressive his court is. Following are the results of court expenditures. which I like this. I like the idea of forcing players to really maintain their upkeep. I think too often you get players that walk around saying, I am dressed as a king in princely robes, and then they've spent no money on any of the stuff ever. It's like this was their starting clothes. They've never stitched it. They've never taken it to be anything, and they get to walk around like a prince. Like, no, you have to, that stuff takes maintenance. And certainly on a domain level, if you want to be in an opulent palatial estate, you got to spend some monies. And when people ask, like, what do my players spend monies on? Well, that's part of it. You know, they want to walk around like they live like kings, and they have to spend money to live like kings. They can't just stay at the lowest rent tavern in the land and then walk around like they're a king. People are going to think they're either supremely cheap because they've got some big wad and they're not spending any of it, or they're some kind of fraud because they're pretending to be all lordly when everyone can see them coming out of the stinkiest tavern in the docks every night. We do have some box text on the effect of random events and their responses, but I'm kind of skipping it. Though you do get a nice little table here that, depending on what you do, kind of stuff that can happen. Terrence says, gonna just be a Fisher King. There you go. That is your option. So we do get some free actions we can declare. These include agitating, building, decreeing, doing espionage, granting, financing, mustering or disbanding, and then moving troops. You can, let's see, one free action per domain main turn. Oh, I see. So if you're a priest regent, you can agitate. And then if you're a thief regent, you can do espionage. I guess maybe you can do them anyway, but maybe those just, you can only do them for free if you're a thief. Yeah, because it does have a cost. Because on the action list, it seems like anybody can agitate or do espionage. But if you're a priest, you can do it once per domain turn, one free per domain turn for if you're a priest, and then same thing for espionage for thieves. Terrence says, as the Fisher King, they're just going to live in trash pile. Yep. Routine communication, you're free to discuss stuff. Let's see. An example of that is the DM informs Sue that her regent character has received a request from the Kingdom of Daimed. Daimed wishes to move troops through Midori to aid Rossone in a war against, I can't even pronounce that from there, Akrenwe, or Arenwe. If Sue's character answers with a simple yes or no, she doesn't spend an action. However, if she wants to negotiate terms for what Daimed will pay for the right to move troops through Midori, her character must spend an action to form diplomacy. I see. So you get free, you can do kind of free communications, but it's very limited. Once you want to start getting into nitty gritty, you got to pay. And I like that because that's kind of like, you know, if you're, sort of the same thing. You're in the dungeon and you're saying a few things back and forth, fine, right? And then it gets to like, wait a minute, we're going to hold a real-time 30-minute discussion and debate about our actions. That's when as you DM say, okay, you guys are saying this stuff in character and you're spending the time you're spending. So that half hour you're in front of that door wondering what you're going to do about it, you're in front of that door for a half hour, and I'm going to roll twice or 3 times to see if anything comes, you know, all that stuff, right? So there's a consequence. You get your free comms, but if you want to get into it, then hey, pay the toll, pay the price. Then you get your action rounds. Then you do your adjustments afterwards, and we get some ups and downs that can happen. Something to do, something to do with taxes, levies, as a result of rival agents or regents, rather. We get a bit about law holdings and royalty, loyalty, law holdings and loyalty. Occupying forces, rebellions, losses of regency. Could be minor, could be major, could be catastrophic. And that's it for that. And then, let's see, next we have domain, character, and free actions. The foundation of the domain turn lies in the regent's choice of actions. Does he start a war? Or does he carefully build up his resources peacefully? Does he try to destabilize powerful neighbors? Or maneuver enemies into attacking each other? Does he withdraw from public life and spend his time in solitude and study? Is there a heroic quest for him to embark on? As a regent, a PC possesses great control over his own life and the direction of his domain. Actions are resolved during the 3 action rounds of the domain turn. Every regent may perform 3 actions per domain turn, not counting free actions, following the sequence of the domain turn. And then you resolve their actions. Here we have the table list. One of those is adventuring. So you want to go adventure, you want to go explore the cave, you want to go into the swamps or whatever. You got to spend that as one of your turns. And then we have the other ones we already talked about: agitate, build, contest, create a holding, declare war, decree, diplomacy, disband, espionage, finances, forge ley line, fortify, grant, hold, action, investiture, lieutenant. That creates a lieutenant. It's kind of like, I imagine it's, you're not, molding out of clay and then bringing them to life, but you're more taking one of your nameless underlings and then giving them a name and a promotion. Moving troops, muster armies, plying trade, a realm spell, conducting research, ruling, creating a trade route, or training. So you could think about, even without the domain part, if you want to take this blueprint of domain play and think about, as Purple Druid mentioned about timekeeping and downtime, that we have these things even for individuals. So you want to start pulling these things in your campaign, or if you're starting a new campaign and you want to bring these things in at the start, even if you're not going to have domain play from the start, you could think about, okay, you have a list of actions you can do. Now, as a starting adventurer with no domain elements, I have different things. I can adventure, I can train for this month or whatever, right? And then when you come back for your venturing and do all your resting, then there's a month. Okay, now I went out on adventure for this thing, and now I want to train because I gained a level. Okay, now I'm going to train, and that's that action for this month. And then you end up with, if we get 3 whatever in a turn, maybe say, okay, that's the season. That was the spring. You did an adventure, you did a training, and then maybe you did something else. I don't know if there's other things you could agitate, Maybe just move around or do something else, whatever. Or you go on another adventure. So you adventured, you trained, then you went on another adventure. That's the spring. Okay, now you go on to summer. So on and so forth. So you have this nice kind of mechanical way that the year is moving along. Actions are not, resolving actions. Actions are not automatically successful. Many require a success roll. D20 is rolled, and if the roll is equal to or higher than the action success number, the region's action succeeds. If the roll fails, the action is wasted. That's going to be very similar. It's basically you're giving it a DC, or it has a DC, you got to roll above it. So that's pretty easy. However, you can spend Regency points to lower an action success number. And it's just a 1-to-1 spending. So you had those 26 Regent points, you start spending them in different things. One of the things you can spend them on is lowering those difficulties. So gosh, this is 18. Ooh, I can spend 8 Regency points, get it down to a 50-50 roll of the dice. And then other regions can also spend RP to increase or decrease it also. So if you're doing something, someone else got, I guess in this case it's a public action, then someone else can say, oh, I'm going to throw up some roadblocks, or no, this is helping me, so I'm going to help you. In other case, they can also throw their Regency points in the mix. Probably means you want to keep some on the side for rainy day. Oh gosh, this person's doing something horrible, I need to stop it. Or horrible, in terms of my domain. Or I need to push something through. You have domain actions, you have character actions, and then you have those free actions, and then you have some realm actions. Here we get all the descriptions, which I'm not going to go through. I'm just going to go in here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm right at the hour. So I'm going to stop here, and we will get to armies and warfare, which I think will get us into, I can already see war cards on that page. So we'll get to see the different mechanics behind how to conduct war as a regent in Birthright. So we'll consider this part 1. I will come back probably tomorrow and see how much armies and warfare, and then maybe I'm not sure how long this particular part will be. So if it's short, maybe I'll add something else on the end of it. I don't know. We'll see. We will play it by ear. That's all I've got for this. War Bunny says Birthright is so hard to get hold of. Yeah, it took me a long time to acquire my old box. So yes, I totally Agree with you. It is all out there digitally. I don't know if if they're doing any kind of print on demand versions, but all the books, if you go to the drive-through link, it's got basically PDFs to all the elements that are in the box. So you can get all the box set, just not maybe physically. None says, I hope they will have a definitive answer to how big a warband is. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make a T-shirt with that. How big is a warband? Or how big is your warband? Kind of thing. Maybe we'll find answers. We've got war cards. Who knows if we'll have war bands. But that's all I've got. Hey, on your way out, if you give a thumbs up, that would be awesome. If you find yourself in here and you're not subscribed, and you feel like subscribing, that will be awesome too. Other than that, folks, have a great day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I'll talk to you later. Ciao, everybody.